I'm your host, Dennis Horvitz, the David Letterman of the Hopelessly Damned. Dinosaurs ruled the Earth for almost 150 million years. In any case, dinosaurs apparently once trod upon what is now the Jersey Turnpike. And I just pity the poor bastards who were working the toll booths then. But you didn't, okay, never mind. In any case, our guest is Dr. J. Brent Bennington. He was the Associate Professor of Geology at Hofstra University. And he's going to speak to us today about dinosaurs, which is very special for me because it means that for once I won't be the only dinosaur in the program. But it's all right. This is volunteer, folks. And the topic is when dinosaurs ruled New York. And apparently, if most people don't think of New York or even the mid-Atlantic or Eastern Atlantic or New England area as having been a place where dinosaurs would have been, I guess because we associate them generally with tropical climates. And but 65 million years ago, just before the dinosaurs disappeared, the climate situation was a tad different. In any case, I'm not the one to be explaining all of this, and I would like to introduce our guest, Dr. J. Brent Bennington, please.
This is a question that actually is very pertinent to atheists, because sooner or later we get asked questions like this or something like this. Do you have an abbreviated answer to the claim that dinosaurs and human beings coexisted?
There isn't a single iota of evidence that human beings and dinosaurs ever came even close to coexisting.
Fortunately for the dinosaurs, if they had been wiped out a lot sooner, I'm sure.
We would have eaten them. They probably tasted like chicken.
You know, that's a very interesting point because, you know, the claim for the Loch Ness Monster is this, and I'm thinking if such a creature ever existed, the people living in that area would have killed them and eaten them anyway.
It's what we do.
That's what we do best.
We move into an area and we eat everything.
Yeah,
We did it in Hawaii. Hawaii, before humans arrived in Hawaii, the largest animals in the Hawaiian Islands were these enormous flightless geese. And there were no predators in the Hawaiian Islands because they're too far out in the ocean, and mammals were never able to get out to the islands. So the islands were populated by reptiles and birds, very much like the Galapagos. Well, I saw a very interesting talk once by an archaeologist who worked on a dig in Hawaii, and he said, basically in the dig in this cave, you find goose bones, goose bones, goose bones, goose bones, the first shred of charcoal, and then the goose bones are gone. And he figures it took the Polynesians about one generation to eat all the geese. And you got to imagine, these guys cross the ocean in a canoe and they come up on shore, and what's waiting for them? Big fat geese that are like, hey, how you doing? Welcome to Hawaii.
You just basically walk up to and club to
What's for dinner? Goose. Yeah. So, yeah, no, I mean, it's ridiculous. And even the creationists affiliated with, like, the Discovery Institute, for example, even those guys have been forced to acknowledge that all of the human footprints that have been found associated with dinosaur footprints are frauds. They're fakes.
or just mischaracterized.
Yeah, I mean, you can. Everything looks like a footprint if you want it to look like a footprint. So, yeah, and it's completely mischaracterized, and you know, that isn't even in creationist circles. It's very difficult to seriously argue that humans and dinosaurs coexisted. Although the hardcore young Earth creationists do basically assume, I mean, you can't deny dinosaur fossils. Dinosaurs are real. You can't deny the reality of dinosaurs. If you need the Earth to be 4,000 years old, and you need the Earth to have developed exactly as it's described in Genesis, then you have to have dinosaurs in the Garden of Eden, and you have to have dinosaurs on the Ark. Because if that's your worldview, I mean, if that's the view of the history of the Earth that you are convinced is true, then you have to incorporate dinosaurs into that, because you can't argue them away. The bones speak for themselves in a sense.
Would you say that the dinosaurs were just unable to extend their term limits?
Who knows? You know, yeah, I don't. I mean, if you Google around on the web, you can find some wonderful images of Jesus Christ riding a dinosaur in the Garden of Eden. You know,
Yes.
Yeah, why is iridium present in meteors and not on the Earth?
Yes.
Yeah, why is iridium present in meteors and not on the Earth? That system was formed from the
Great question.
same dust conditions.
It's because early in the history of the Earth differentiated. It basically melted, and the heavier stuff sank to the middle. So the Earth's supply of iridium is down there in the core,
Okay.
and the crust is depleted in iridium. That's a great question, ma'am.
When they do radiometric dating, I understand that it has to do with like a half-life of a certain element. How do they know that like a half-life is several million years or whatever? How are they able to determine that?
Oh, brilliant question. Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Radiometric dating. How does it work? How do you know it's reliable? I mean, the creationists are always attacking radiometric dating.
And confusing it with carbon dating.
Well, carbon dating is a very peculiar form of radiometric dating. Radiometric dating is actually quite simple. And the best analogy you can use for radiometric dating is an egg timer. And the way radiometric dating works is when certain minerals form, they incorporate radioactive atoms into their crystal structure. And certain minerals have a high affinity for radioactive atoms like uranium, and they have no affinity at all for the product, the radioactive product of uranium, which is lead. So when these minerals form, they're full of uranium, they have no lead. Now, uranium decays, it turns into lead through a kind of complicated cascade, but eventually all uranium atoms will change into lead atoms, and that happens at a known rate. How do we know the rate? We measure it in a laboratory. You can measure the rate at which radioactive atoms decay in a lab, and I mean, the half-life of uranium is uranium-238 is. It's got like a 4 billion year half-life.
That's what my
But you don't have to wait 4 billion years to see a uranium atom decay. If you've got a chunk of uranium, some proportion of those uranium atoms are going to decay at any given moment, right? So it's a stochastic thing. You can't predict exactly when a particular uranium atom is going to pop off and start, its cascade. But if you have a million of them, you can measure how many of those million uranium atoms are decaying over an interval of time, and that will tell you how long it will take half of them to decay or how long it will take all of them to decay. And so physicists were measuring this in their labs back at the turn of the 20th century. So you have your egg timer, some mineral grain. It starts out with all the atoms are uranium atoms, and over time the uranium atoms drop into the bottom of the egg timer as they turn into lead atoms. And so you want to know how much time has gone by since a rock formed. You look and you see how much is left in the top versus what's in the bottom. How much uranium is there relative to lead. You measure that proportion. If you know the half-life, which you've measured in the laboratory, it's a simple calculation to come up with how much time has gone by.
Right, but I'm still a little confused. Like how are they able to determine that the half-life of a particular element is X amount of years?
So let me see if I can think of another way to explain it. It's again, if you have a known quantity of uranium, and in a laboratory you measure what proportion of the atoms in your known quantity of uranium decay over an interval of time, that you can extrapolate that to the half-life. The half-life is simply a measure of how long would it take half of all of those atoms to decay. If you measure how long it took 1/100 millionth of those atoms to decay, you can extrapolate that to the half-life. That's
Chris?
I was just trying to say the same thing in a different way. It's projection, it's extrapolation. You have a sample, you assume that it's going to continue that way until there's no more of the original atoms.
And there are some really clever checks on the process too. Like there are two different isotopes of uranium. Each one has a different half-life, so it changes to lead at a different rate. And if you have minerals that have both isotopes of uranium, each isotope should give you the same answer for the age of the rock. And if anything has gone wrong, they will give you wildly different answers. So if you use two different isotopes to date the same rock and you get the same answer, it would be the most astonishing coincidence in the world if you were getting the same wrong answer twice, essentially. So that's one check on it.
And what's also fun about this, you mentioned the turn of the century, it was Rutherford's generation that came up with this, and Rutherford was one of the people that gave the more or less modern age of the Earth.
Yeah, there was a Ernst Rutherford proposed that you could use radioactivity to measure the age of rocks. Bertram Boltwood was an American geologist who actually was the first person to try it. And geologists, you know, the physicists were always saying, the Earth is a few tens of millions of years old. Not, you know, it's old, but it's not that old. Geologists always knew that that was not enough time to make all these rocks, to evolve all these species. You know, Charles Darwin said the Earth has to be, you know, tremendously, tremendously old to allow the process of evolution to have produced all these different forms. So geologists were hoping for maybe a few 100 million years. That would be cool. That would give us some time. Bertram Boltwood measures the radiometric ages using uranium-lead of a sample of 5 different rocks from around the world, and gets ages between like 700 million and 2.5 billion. And the geologists are like, wow, you know, we won the lottery. You know, this is more time than we even imagined. And then now we know from dating meteorites and dating moon rocks that the solar system, the Earth and everything in the solar system formed about 4.6 billion years ago, and pretty quickly.
Where on the Earth did dinosaurs originally arise? And did they radiate from there, or did they grow up, evolve independently?
Where did dinosaurs originate on the Earth, and what, you know, how did they sort of spread out? Great question. We don't know. Unfortunately, dinosaurs evolved towards the, as far as we can tell, they evolved towards the beginning of the late Triassic, during an interval of time called the Carnian. And there are very few good Carnian age sedimentary rock formations around the world. The best ones are in South America, a couple in North America. So we have the best information we have about the earliest dinosaurs comes from South America. Does that mean that's where dinosaurs first evolved? Probably not, because we just don't have good rocks from the rest of the world.
Can you just elaborate a little bit more, if it's possible, the difference between dinosaurs and other
Sure.
reptiles that lived at the same time?
What defines a dinosaur is basically dinosaurs are terrestrial reptiles that have particular skeletal features. Probably the most significant skeletal feature is an opening in the middle of the hip, between the 3 main bones of the hip. Dinosaur hips have a blade-like bone at the top called the ilium, which is where the muscles attach that hold the leg erect. And then there's a long bone that sticks out to the back called the ischium, where the muscles attach that pull the leg back. And then there's a bone called the pubis that projects forward, that attaches the muscles to pull the leg forward. Muscles can only pull, so if you want to walk, you need to pull your leg forward, and then you need to pull it back, and pull it forward, and pull it back.
So that's how it's done, right?
That's how it's done. So dinosaurs have this very distinctive opening in the middle of those bones where the femur articulates. And all these other reptiles that were related to dinosaurs and sort of similar to dinosaurs have a closed off middle of the hip. And what that probably meant is that most of the cousins of dinosaurs couldn't quite get their legs as far underneath their body as dinosaurs could. And that could be one of the reasons why dinosaurs were so successful. They had a fully upright posture. They had a mammalian posture. And if you get your legs underneath you, you can run more efficiently.
So, I'm sorry, so the Stegosaurus, for instance, would not be a dinosaur, is that correct?
No, so all of, basically, you know, dinosaurs, you have the meat-eating dinosaurs, you have the long-necked, big, giant sauropod dinosaurs, and then you have a variety of plant-eating dinosaurs, the duck-billed dinosaurs, the armored dinosaurs, Stegosaurus and Ankylosaurus. You have the horned dinosaurs, the bone-headed dinosaurs, and that's about it. I mean, it's not a huge variety. And they're all terrestrial. We know of no marine dinosaurs. All of the marine reptiles are more closely related to lizards than they are to dinosaurs.
And the pterosaurs.
Pterosaurs are close cousins to dinosaurs. Pterosaurs have the same ankle structure that dinosaurs do, but they have a different hip structure, and you know there's some other skeletal differences. Most dinosaurs tend to have 3 bones fused into the hip to make the hip very strong and able to support all that weight. So there's actually about, I think, 15 skeletal features that all dinosaurs have, that animals that aren't dinosaurs don't have, and that are used to define dinosaurs. All of those features, by the way, are shared by birds. And this is why paleontologists are completely convinced that birds are a type of dinosaur. They're small, theropod predatory dinosaurs that fly. We now know from fossils that are coming out of China that feathers evolve in dinosaurs. And feathers are probably a relatively primitive trait in dinosaurs. Feathers did not evolve for flight. Feathers evolved for display or for insulation. They were later put to use in flight by flying dinosaurs, which we call birds.
Okay.
I'd like to ask you about the fossils above the iridium. Where those fossils are, how many years do they actually minimum, maximum represent?
It's hard to say. It's
And has anybody else besides New Jersey, I've heard this before from New Jersey, about Cretaceous fossils above the iridium.
well, there's actually there's a little bit of a controversy going on because there's a guy out in New Mexico who is pretty convinced he's got relatively complete dinosaur skeletons from a rock formation that's been dated to the early Tertiary out in the American Southwest. But I've read some of his stuff, and he argues very strongly that these rocks are correctly dated. They are something like 60 million years old instead of 65 million years old, and he's got a significant proportion, enough of a dinosaur skeleton that you can argue that those bones weren't eroded out of older rock layers and redeposited in younger rock layers. And then I've read some replies to his papers where other paleontologists say, no, you've got the dates wrong. And I don't know who's right, really.
I'd be suspicious of any rumors coming out of New Jersey myself.
I agree. But there's rumors coming out of everywhere.
Well, so there are some interesting, tantalizing hints that.
A new crater in India now.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, the crater in India.
Yeah. I haven't read about that yet. I was at the meeting where that was announced in Portland a couple of weeks ago.
I don't think anyone's given any credit.
But I'll show you actually the reason for this slide. This is a graph that plots the age of all of the big extinction events against the age of major, massive volcanic, chronic, multi-100,000-year volcanic eruption events. And I've always been impressed by this graph because we have some evidence that asteroid impacts are associated with a couple of extinctions. But every single major mass extinction happened while there was one of these enormous volcanic events going on. And I think if you want to wipe out the world, if you want to really do damage to the global ecosystems, a short, sharp shock doesn't do it. What does it is chronic perturbation. You have massive magma eruptions going on over millions of square miles, pumping carbon dioxide, pumping hydrogen sulfide into the atmosphere repeatedly at intervals over 100,000 years. You are going to seriously perturb the chemistry of the oceans. You are seriously going to mess up the atmosphere, mess up global climate. And that chronic stress is what's going to drive things to extinction. And as I tell my students, an asteroid impact doesn't help. All right, if the volcanoes are already sort of pushing you towards the edge, getting whacked by an asteroid isn't going to make your day any better.
Can I just get
Oh,
this
I'm
gentleman
sorry. I keep overlooking you. I'm so sorry.
About your comment there, wouldn't an asteroid trigger a series of volcanic eruptions like that?
Not necessarily. It would depend on where the asteroid hit. These eruptions are usually associated with rifting events where essentially a mid-ocean ridge begins to form underneath a continent. You have a really significant, unusually high amount of magma, large amount of magma being pumped out of the Earth's mantle over an extended period of time. And if that's happening not at the bottom of the ocean, but happening where it's exposed to the atmosphere, you're going to dump tremendous quantities of noxious gases into the atmosphere.
But my earlier question was, how long after the extinction of the dinosaurs did primates actually evolve?
We don't know. Primates, the earliest primates could have evolved in the Cretaceous. The fossil record of mammals going back into the Mesozoic is very sketchy because they're small. Small things do not fossilize as well as big things. Big things are easier to fossilize. So, the fossil record of primates is not good. Part of the reason for that is primates like to live in forests, and forests are bad environments for making fossils. That's why the human fossil record is so bad. You want to make fossils, you want things that live in muddy, messy, sediment-rich environments end up in the fossil record. Hominids don't like to live in muddy, messy. We like to live in dry, comfortable environments, so we don't end up as fossils that often. How smart were dinosaurs? That's actually not hard to get at. What you need to do is calculate the ratio of the size of the brain to the size of the body, the brain to body mass ratio. The smartest dinosaurs were small predatory dinosaurs called troodontids, like raptors from Jurassic Park. And they were, they had pretty good sized brains, big eyes. They were probably as smart as house cats. I mean that's around that level.
House cats are smarter than humans.
Could they open doors? Probably not. Like the raptors do in Jurassic Park. Would they have gotten smarter if they had persisted? Why not? We don't know that much about why intelligence evolves. We don't know why we're smart. We're not even sure if being smart is such a great idea. I think that remains to be seen. And global warming is we're so smart we're drastically altering the atmosphere of our planet. Do I think global warming is real? Yeah, because it's been demonstrated. All of the data coming out of the climate, from the climate scientists, unequivocally show that we are altering the atmosphere and the heat balance of the planet. And the physics are very simple. We understand what putting carbon dioxide in the atmosphere of the Earth does to the heat balance of the Earth. It makes the Earth warmer. And our satellites show us the Earth is getting warmer. Our long-term climate measurements show us the Earth is getting warmer. Yeah, what I tell my students is, if you think about fossil fuels, what are fossil fuels? Fossil fuel is organic carbon, which was created by photosynthesis using the energy from sunlight that became trapped in the crust of the Earth. So it's fossil sunshine, essentially, trapped in the form of carbon, in the form of chemical bonds between carbon atoms. It has taken 400 million years, 300 million years to trap all of the fossil fuel that we're exploiting in the crust of the Earth. So 300 million years worth of carbon dioxide that's been removed from our atmosphere is sitting in the crust of the Earth. We are releasing that carbon back into the atmosphere in 100 years.
Wow.
That's basically it. We're taking what took nature 300 million years to put away, and we're returning it to the atmosphere in 100 or 200 years. And that is going to have a tremendous impact on the composition of the atmosphere and the way the Earth's climate system functions. And we don't know exactly what's going to happen. We don't know how fast it's going to happen. There are some things we don't understand. We don't understand how glaciers melt. They're melting faster than we think they should be. Greenland is melting faster than our models say it should be, which is little reason for comfort. So what I would say is the climate is changing, and it's probably changing faster than we think it's going to change. And are we close to a tipping point where we're going to basically send the climate into a different mode, and it's going to stay there for thousands of years? Some of our best climate people are very, very concerned that's happening, and who am I to doubt them?
Going back to the question of the intelligence of dinosaurs, what is your opinion about the way dinosaurs are portrayed in the media? And by that I mean on the Discovery Channel. And I think there's a lot of really good information, but the thing that makes me kind of wince is that when they without a disclaimer, they kind of portray certain actions and motives as though these dinosaurs understand that what they're doing has some meaning in a larger sense.
Well,
I'm not comfortable with that.
Well, we always anthropomorphize animals because we want to relate to them. So
you have to sell car wash and toothpaste.
Well, that's just what we do. We want to think animals think like us, and
Right.
Anybody that owns a dog does this. I understand my dog. My dog exists for one thing and one thing only, and that's food. And everything it does to get more food. Right? And my dog makes perfect sense in that light. But you can. I have a friend who was convinced that her dog had favorite TV shows that they used to put on for the dog every day. The dog thinks if it watches this TV show, you're going to think it's cute and it's going to get food. So dinosaurs are no different.
You mean the pet psychic is
No, we in these shows on the Discovery Channel, they anthropomorphize dinosaurs because they want, I mean, people relate to that, and that's what people like to see. My problem with a lot of dinosaur shows on TV is that they have these photorealistic reconstructions, which are wonderful. It's like, I mean, for me, it's like the best eye candy in the world.
Right.
But they don't tell you what the information is that those reconstructions are based on, and they don't tell you how speculative a lot of it is.
That's my problem with it. There should be some kind of disclaimer in the beginning.
The best documentary series out there is Nova. The Nova show, those episodes are very good at laying out, here's the science behind what these people are saying happened, and I use the Nova episodes in my teaching all the time.